Yoga is a living, breathing, evolving practice where we get to connect to more of who we are, let go of the chaos and the suffering, let go of the attachment, and really connect to our true selves. Hi, I'm Monica Phillips. I'm the founder of Sparkplug Labs. We do executive leadership coaching for individuals, teams, and groups. I started this video podcast series, Yoga Philosophy for Everyday Living, to bring some of the ancient wisdom of yoga to show you how it helps us overcome fear, deal with a world full of anxiety and stress, and so much change. I'm a certified yoga teacher, and I'm excited to share these episodes with you, full of interviews with world-class leading yoga authorities across the US and Canada who teach globally. I hope you enjoy them. Please join me off the mat. Hello and welcome to Yoga Philosophy for Everyday Living, where we explore how ancient wisdom supports modern leadership, work, and life. I'm your host, Monica Phillips of Sparkplug Labs. Today's episode is the inner work of inclusion, yoga philosophy for thriving workplaces. Joining me today is guest Jeremy Engels, liberal arts endowed professor at Penn State University, co-founder of the Yoga Lab and author of Living Namaste, a practical guide to mindfulness, yoga, and building community. Jeremy, what is your previous book called again? Mindful Communities?
Yeah, so in February, I had another book published. There were two this year, and it's called On Mindful Democracy, a Declaration of Interdependence to Mend a Fractured World.
Oh, like that is we're going to talk about that because that is exactly what we need right now in this moment. Just a quick intro, because I started this podcast to really shine a light on this ancient wisdom of yoga and how it informs how we can be better in the workplace. Most of us show up in a workplace and we want to feel good, and workplaces invest in inclusion and well-being, but the day-to-day experience often falls short. And so what if the missing piece isn't a better policy, but a deeper practice? So Professor Engels, Jeremy Engels, is a communications scholar and yoga community builder, which you'll hear more about. His new book draws on yoga philosophy to explore how we genuinely show up for one another. And so, Jeremy, how did you come to see the ancient teachings of yoga as a lens for this very contemporary issue of building community and care for one another at work?
Thanks for having me on the podcast. This is wonderful. And thanks to everybody who's listening. It's great to connect. Yoga is not one thing, and it's never been one thing. It's ancient and contemporary at the same time. And one of the things that I love about the practice of yoga and meditation is that they are always changing and adapting to meet the needs of the present moment. And the word yoga, it's interesting. In Sanskrit, it has over 80 different meanings, and they often contradict each other. It's pretty cool to read the old dictionary entries to see this. But one of the meanings that's really consistent is union, connection. Marriage is another way of saying that. Yoga is about connecting things that our culture has disconnected. So the mind and the body and the breath, my day-to-day living and my deeper intentions and purpose, me and you, us and them. And so I think that yoga and the teachings of yoga are so relevant to the many challenges that we face today in the workplace, beyond the workplace, in our culture, in our politics, in our classrooms.
Yeah. Really well said. Can you talk a little bit more about your previous book, Mindful Democracy? And we were just talking before we pressed record. I struggle with these spaces that we've created in society today that are so polarized, and even the operative bipartisan. It means there's us and them. And when you declare yourself a candidate for any political race, you're immediately alienating half the country. We find that people will not show up for work in a place where the company or their boss or their employer or their team has a political stance that is not that doesn't support their own. We find that in communities, people don't want to move to an area where it might be too liberal or too conservative. So I started the Lafayette Yoga Festival last summer because I wanted to create these spaces where if we come together, when we breathe, when we meditate together, we have world peace. Tell me
Mm,
more about what that mindful democracy means to you.
sure. So when you think about democracy today, I mean, you summarized it so nicely there that we have been conditioned, educated, maybe conned into thinking that democracy is a war between two political parties and it's all about which party is going to win an election or whatnot. And really, democracy is a practice of how, on a grassroots community level, we work together to care for ourselves, to care for each other, and to care for this miraculous life that we share. So, in the book, I try to help people imagine what democracy might look like if we set aside the battle, if we set aside the war, and instead started from common ground. All of us suffer, all of us want to be happy. All of us care about people in our lives. All of us care about things in the world. But so often our labels get in the way of that. Like the moment somebody is like a Democrat or a Republican, you don't need to know anything else about them because it's like you know everything about them. But we're so much more than labels. We're people. And so I think that if we can get back to this level, like you said, of recognizing that we are embodied beings living a shared life together, um, it becomes possible to start to reimagine and practice a different kind of community building that's not about, I call it in the book, enemyship. Enemyship is when we come together in opposition to a shared enemy. And that's like what all of our politics is today.
Mhm.
Enemyship is not friendship. And what we need is friendship. We need genuine practices of solidarity, of care. Um,
Mhm.
and it's amazing to me when I talk to people who vote differently than I do. If we set aside our labels, but instead focus on, well, how can we care for each other? How can we collaborate to achieve certain goals that we share? Those labels don't matter anymore. And
Yeah.
it becomes possible to relate and communicate in ways that um, often seem impossible on a national political level.
Mhm.
So the book reimagines what democracy would look like, and the really cool thing about the book, I think, my PhD is in the field of rhetoric, which is the study of the power of language and words and symbols to bring us together, to pull us apart. And I wrote a big part of my dissertation about the Declaration of Independence. And this year is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which I think we're going to celebrate with like a big UFC fight on the White House lawn or something like that. I think there's going to be a Formula One race in Washington,
Mhm.
D.C. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to be there a couple days before the 4th, signing some books and talking. So we'll see. I thought it'd be really cool to rewrite the Declaration of Independence as a declaration of interdependence,
Mhm.
emphasizing what we share. And so that really is the centerpiece of this new book, is this declaration of interdependence. And it's deeply inspired by my practice of mindfulness and meditation and also yoga.
I really love that. I like to ask myself the opposite of a situation. If I'm struggling with something, if something doesn't seem aligned or feel right to me, I think, what's the opposite of that?
Mm,
And usually it's love.
yeah.
So usually when we're struggling, it's fear. It's that I'm a huge fan of the book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And there's this
Mm,
under, below the line living, that's scarcity, fear,
yeah.
and not a lot of good comes from that place because we're stuck. But when you move above the line into abundance, knowing that if I have abundance, it doesn't take anything away from you. And
Yeah.
I can have full abundance, and so can you, and so can you, and so can you. We can all live our full life exactly how we want if we lead with love. And so, a lot of people, I think, would say, when I'm afraid of something and I'm angry, it's like, okay, well, what do you love? Oh, I love trees. Okay. I love my family. Cool. And then you start to hear all these interdependencies, these commonalities, these parts of the community that bring us together. I love the bakery at the corner of my street.
Hmm.
It's like so joyful. And that's where we can really start to make progress. Okay, well, if you love the bakery at the corner, how could we bring more community into this space?
Hmm. Hmm. That's beautiful. I mean, there is so much more that unites us than divides us. And we belong together. We belong to each other. And when you enter that space of love and gratitude, as well, like I love doing gratitude practices with people. What are you grateful for? Oh, we don't disagree about or we don't agree about politics, but we're grateful for the same things. And we're grateful for the trees. We're grateful for that bakery. What can we do to help the trees? What can we do to support the bakery? What can we build together? We're in a completely different space of community building and leadership, and citizenship than we would be if we just focused on what we're afraid of,
Mhm.
or what makes us angry or resentful or, yeah.
It's hard to carry those big emotions, and they're good. They're helpful as a warning signal only. And then to say, okay, how do you want to activate? How do you want to shift that scenario? What could you do? Do you want to let it go and not let it disturb your mindset? Right? These are the four locks of the Yoga Sutras. Do you
Sure.
want to see others with love? If you're feeling a little jealousy, use that as a signal to yourself to say, what is it about that that I also want? Because that's the feeling I'm having. As you were speaking, I was thinking of the Pat Benatar song, "We Belong." I think
Nice,
that needs
nice,
to be the,
nice.
the theme song for this episode.
I love it. Yeah. If we have a theme song, that should be it. That's brilliant. I love it.
In your new book, Living Namaste, you talk about three reminders: I am divine, you are divine, and live the word together, noting that the significance of mindfulness and yoga is about remembering to return to a state of awareness, presence, and connection. Can you talk about those concepts and the sequence and why that matters?
Sure. So I think of yoga as being a practice of mindfulness. The present moment is the only moment that exists. And of course, the past influences the present, and the choices that we make in the present will influence the future. And so, in that way, the future and the past are real, but the past is gone. Future hasn't happened yet. The present is the only space of freedom. And one of the ancient words for mindfulness in, Sanskrit and Pali also mean to remember. Um, Mindfulness is a practice of remembering to come back to the present moment when your mind wanders off. It's also a practice of remembering what you've learned from your practice. And so the Living Namaste book follows three reminders, three mindful reminders. The first is I am divine. And why is that significant? What does that mean? The word namaste, is a really common greeting in India, a parting as well, and Southeast Asia. And for most people, a lot of the time, it's just a synonym for hello. It's a greeting. But a number of teachers of yoga and meditation went to, from the United States, from Europe, from North America, went to India, they went to Southeast Asia, during the late 60s and 70s, and learned from master teachers and then brought what they learned back with them. And Ram Dass was one of those teachers. His name's probably familiar to some of your readers. And when he came back and was teaching people about yoga and meditation, he said that namaste means more than just hello. It means the divine in me bows to the divine in you, or the divine in me acknowledges the divine in you. And that's become a really common definition of namaste. And we traditionally close our yoga practices now by saying namaste.
When I did my yoga teacher training, it was kind of coming out of fashion. We did a lot of inclusion work, and
Sure.
there was a big movement in the yoga communities that taught me that because that word means so much, And in India, it's a greeting. So I end with usually like, may you all be well, may you all be at peace, may you all um, move through your week with ease, or something like that. But if others want to say it, I'm not attached to it one way or another. I just don't personally say it because I find it is nuanced,
Yeah.
and I'm not of that culture. So I bring it into my spaces, and then others can decide how they want to experience it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think that's a decision every yoga teacher makes for the space. And, you know, when I close my practices and say namaste, I explain it. And, it becomes an invitation for people that they can heed or
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
And in the book, I talk about how you don't have to say namaste to feel the spirit of the word. You can infuse any greeting, any parting with that same spirit of recognizing the divine in yourself and the divine in another. So recognizing that there's something dignified, there's something worthy in each of us. And I think that's such an important reminder, especially in a culture that has a tendency to play up our insecurities, that often has a scarcity mindset, and that can make us feel really insecure in who we are. So connecting to that sense of worthiness, connecting to that sense of miraculousness, I think is really important. And so the first reminder becomes, I am divine. And for me, that means both recognizing, the fact that we deserve to be here as individuals, that we have just as much a right to be, alive and to be respected as anyone else. Um, and it also is a way of connecting to this inner place of awareness and peace that all of us are capable of. And this is a space of mindfulness, to me, of mindful awareness. So the first reminder is an invitation to practice coming back to this place of peace when the mind wanders off, and coming back to this place where we recognize that in each moment, in each present moment, we can step back from our habits, from our conditioned responses to the world, from the ways that our culture tells us we have to be or what we have to do. We can step back from that place and recognize those habit energies in ourself and choose to react to things differently, to respond to things differently. When it would be common to respond to an event with fear or hatred or anger, we can step back from those responses and choose to lead instead with love, or to lead with gratitude or compassion. That to me is really what it means to connect to the divine in ourselves. I think it's important to be able to connect to that divine in ourselves before we try to recognize the divine in others. I think it's really difficult to recognize the divine in others if we ourselves are locked in a state of reactivity, fear, anger, frustration, resentment. And
Yeah.
so that's the reason that the personal practice comes first, and then the opening to others, recognizing that other people also have that same divinity, and connecting along that space to others, that space of love, that space of compassion, that space of gratitude. And then the third reminder, living the word together, is an invitation to build communities, where we support each other and where we work together to care for each other and for the life that we share. And so that's really the trajectory of the book. And like I said, whether you say namaste or whether you don't, it's possible to bring this same set of practices into your life, whether you're a yogi, whether you're not.
Yeah. When I think about the Patanjali's, the eight limbs of yoga or Ashtanga,
Sure.
I think of this, you know, and then you say you're a yoga teacher to someone and they're like, oh, I'm not flexible, or it's too slow, or it's too fast. There's always some judgment around what yoga is or isn't. And most of the time, I feel like every day we are living yoga. It's a foundation of breath, of mindfulness, of awareness, the yamas and the niyamas, and everything you're talking about in terms of the divine within and without and within the communities. I hear this practice of svadhyaya, this self awareness, this self study as a foundation to see others. We first have to understand our own patterns, assumptions, and reactions. And because we're human, most of the time there's some kind of judgment. We just can't help it, right? We are living the world through our own experiences, our own body, our own perceptions. And when we hear that judgment, that's the invitation to pause. It's hard. It is a practice. And even as yogis, we mess up. And so we need to go back to the practice and
Yeah.
think like, what do I need in this moment?
Yeah.
Maybe I just stop talking.
No, I think it's great. I love the dialogue, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when you think about the eight limbs of yoga, the Ashtanga, the yamas and the niyamas are the ethical foundation of a yogic life, and that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about self-inquiry, svajaya, self-study, recognizing our patterns, our habits, and learning how to not necessarily blame ourselves or judge ourselves for those habits or patterns, because they're things that we've learned. They're things that we've picked up along the way. They're things that are endemic to our culture. But we have this capacity to notice them as they arise in ourselves, and to pause and to step back, and then to make a choice to live with nonviolence, ahimsa, right? To live with truthfulness and compassion, satya, to live with generosity, all of the yamas and niyamas, and then to infuse our breath with that, right? Pranayam, to move with ease and stability, asana. It's such a beautiful practice.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. And I imagine in your work at the university, you sometimes come into interpersonal conflict.
Sure.
Maybe there are some politics,
We're
but
human beings, right?
right. I wonder, how do you bring in this yogi mindset as a manager, a colleague, someone navigating a hard team dynamic, and how can you share that in a way that helps listeners resonate with something they might be experiencing in the workplace?
Sure. I think it's important to recognize it's challenging, right? In moments of conflict, because those are the moments in which our habits come to light. They just come out. But I try to remember that a lot of, not all, but a lot of the, I don't know, arrogance that you encounter in others, maybe the anger or whatever else it is, it's coming from a place of pain. It's coming from a place of suffering. It's an expression of that. And so a lot of times when I'm dealing with someone who is upset, I'm dealing with someone who's in pain. And I myself have been in pain, and I often am in pain. Like, that's part of the human experience. And so we can meet on that common space, right? Like I know what it's like to go through that. And I know a lot of times that in moments of pain and suffering, when tempers rise and voices rise, actually the best thing we can do is go for a mindful walk together, or take a few deep breaths together and get out of our heads and into our bodies, to reconnect with the ground and the earth and the air, and then to come back to things with a fresh perspective. And so, when I think about meditation practice, I think, and I talk in the book a little bit about this, of how, often we react to things and we say things that we don't mean, or that we wish we could take back. All of us have sent a text or an email that we went, uh-oh, I wish I could have that right back, or said something in conversation. It's human. It's just
That
part of
delay feature on the inbox is very helpful.
exactly
Yeah.
Yep. Not often, but there have been a couple times where I've called an email back after I've sent it. But we can also cultivate this space of responsibility, is what I think of it, like of being responsive rather than reactive. And the amazing thing about spaces of responsibility is that we can expand them and cultivate them together. And so, in an interpersonal dynamic, we can work to create a space of responsibility together where we're both trying our best to respond to a situation rather than just react to it. And I often find with my students, because there's a power dynamic there, right? I mean, as a professor and a student, but if I invite my students into that space of responsibility, like we're going to co create this space together, they feel so much more empowered actually about the interaction that we have, and the decisions we tend to come to feel so much better. I try my best. And again, it's not easy. We're human. We're not yogi gods like, Vivekananda talked about, or, I read about the Siddhis in book 3 of Patanjali and these great yoga powers, right? And I'm not at that level yet. I don't know. Maybe you
I
are.
tell my students, I'm not your guru, right? I'm here
Exactly.
to guide
Yeah.
you. I love that you use the word co-creation. As a
Yeah.
coach, I trained through the Coactive Training Institute, and it is all that is the foundation. That it is
Yeah.
not mentor relationship, a sponsor relationship. As a coach, you are here guiding together, and
Yep.
that the ability to even teach and offer up coaching skills to people in the workplace is this invitation to co-create, to design an alliance together, to say this is what we need from each other when we step into these shared
Yep.
spaces. All of us interact with people at some point in our lives, right? Whether we're, living a pretty isolated life or not, we have needs. We come into people, and that can cause conflict, right?
Yeah.
Someone's having a bad day and you get too close to them in a parking lot. Someone is daydreaming and they forget to start to go at the green light, right? You see it in the car all the time.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And I love, yeah, the co-creation is beautiful, and thinking about this is something that we're building together. And I try to remember and try my best at work, in the classroom for me, or, as a yoga teacher. Um, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen master, was, one of my meditation teachers. And he had a phrase he used that I love. He said, "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way." And what
Mhm.
he meant by that was that you can't fight a war for peace, because the act of fighting the war undermines the goal of peace. The only way to have peace is to be peaceful. And so if I want to create an environment at work, in the classroom, that's truly inclusive and open and respectful of diverse opinions and perspectives, that invites participation, like a truly co-created space, and that's what I want. I have to embody that myself, because the people around me are going to respond to that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really try to do in these spaces, is to do my best to embody the kind of world that I want to live in.
That's so beautifully said. I love that you brought up Thich Nhat Hanh. There's a quote, walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet. And
Yes.
I feel that in my body when I share it. And I sometimes will step outside for a quick 10-minute break between meetings and just walk as if I'm kissing the earth with my feet. And I can feel this calm come over me and I feel connected. And it's even just such a peaceful practice. And I find you mentioned rhetoric and words and symbols. I have a Buddha statue behind me. I live near a Buddhist monastery. And these symbols, even walking past the Buddhist monastery, I feel peace come over me. Is
Yeah.
there a symbol or a phrase or something that you use to ground yourself or that you offer to others?
Well, I love that quote that you mentioned, actually, and I will bring it up when teaching yoga too. I mean, it's
Mhm.
really cool actually to practice a pose like warrior one or warrior two, and to imagine that your feet are kissing the earth in that pose.
Mhm.
And it totally changes the nature of the warrior, right?
Yeah.
You're not fighting against anything, actually. You're embodying the best parts of yourself. And so,
Yeah.
um,
I like to say expand your arms out like uh, offerings of peace, right?
I
What are you
love
offering out instead
it.
of like resisting, but you're like want to reach even more people, so you get even a little longer through the arms, even a little taller through the crown of the head.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, those are moments where, the study of rhetoric and language really comes together nicely with our yoga and meditation practice, because um, it's a skill to be able to invite our students to have these really beautiful experiences, right? And I mean, I can tell just from talking with you that you're an amazing yoga teacher, just by the way that you use language, and like those are some beautiful cues that you're talking about. And another reminder, I guess, kind of along these same lines, and I think that people who know me really well would say that this is probably one of the things that they most associate with me, is that I call everybody friends. And that's my, I don't know, my friend, and how are you, my friend? And I say that in emails, and I do it in my books. And it's just a reminder to me to try to meet people in that space of co-creation, of collaboration, of community, of compassion, of communication, as opposed to a space of, you know, I don't know what divides us. I love the poet Walt Whitman. He's my favorite. And some of his most beautiful poems have that word friends. And it's like this just lovely invitation to come a little bit closer, and let's like really be ourselves and share what we share and build something beautiful together. Yeah.
After Shel Silverstein, Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass was the first poetry book I read that really drew me into the power
Mm.
of words and poetry. I loved it all. So
Cool.
it's fun that you brought that up. I would
Yeah.
love to hear a little bit more about Yoga Lab. You and your wife developed a yoga studio. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Our yoga journey, we started practicing yoga when we were in graduate school, mainly as a way of stress relief. And that's something that brings a lot of people to yoga. And then when we moved to this little college town where we live now, State College, Pennsylvania, we connected with a nice community here. And I think that's the other aspect of yoga, yoga studios that is so beautiful and lovely, is this, we get to practice together. You get to be part of a community. You're not alone. And we trained to be yoga teachers. We went to India and studied there. We had a lot of experiences that, took us around the world. And, there were injuries and there was retraining. I mean, there's a lot. But it led us to a really beautiful place with two other couples in town, coming together and saying, it'd be really cool if we could create a yoga community together, if we could create a yoga studio together where we really are embodying the kind of world that we want to live in. And so we opened up Yoga Lab 10 years ago, and this year will be our 10-year anniversary. So we made it through COVID, which
Congratulations. No, that's
is good.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a challenging time for small businesses, especially yoga studios. But it's become my favorite thing about where I live, and there's so many things I love about it. I mean, I love Anna, my wife, and Kristen, our other owner, are just the most amazing yogis that I know, and the most amazing women that I know. And they do such a beautiful job with the space and the community. But, we get to take each other's classes, we get to hang out and do yoga teacher training together. And I love all of that. But I love more than anything that it's a space in our community where people can gather no matter who they are. They don't have to be affiliated with the university. They don't have to believe any certain particular thing. People are there because they want to feel better in their bodies. They want to reconnect with their breath. They want to feel more connected to the earth and to each other. And I love being part of that. I mean, it's amazing.
People do want that. Yeah. And so this is the invitation, right? Step into a yoga studio, meet someone who wants to join that with you, walk outside, go to your local park. This time is going by so quickly. I'd love to ask you a couple more questions,
Sure.
bringing it back to the workplace. What does a leader who is genuinely practicing self-awareness and empathy actually look and sound like from your rhetoric, symbols and communication, words and action, just on an everyday basis? What is that?
I think that a leader who is genuinely practicing these things is someone who simply through their presence invites others to practice these things too, because we recognize in them a kind of peace, a kind of compassion, a kind of equanimity that we ourselves want as well. The best leaders that I've been around, and I've been really fortunate to have some great, you know, department heads, some great people at the university, some great mentors, great yoga teachers I've studied with. They're people that are open, they are honest, they're not duplicitous, they're not. In Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, he talks about how some people have like forked tongues, meaning that like they'll say one thing to your face and then they say something completely different
Mm.
behind your back. That destroys trust quicker than anything else.
Mm.
A really good leader actually wants what's best for you and wants what's best for the community, and puts those things above their own ego. And I don't know, when I encounter people like that, I want to be around them. I
Mhm.
want to work with them. I want to collaborate with them. I want to build something better with them.
My word of the month is equanimity. And it
Oh, it's
really is this invitation to be at peace in the middle of all of the chaos and tension, like to be the peace that allows for the peace, to reject the chatter and the clutter that can infect our minds. My work is in leadership development. I really focus on advancing women leaders in the workplace.
Mhm.
And the people I know who are the most satisfied in life, personally and professionally, and thriving in all the ways, they have brought in others and helped them rise
Yep.
up.
Yep.
And then, every time you do that, they're like bringing it right back to you. There is no losing when you are, you said it earlier, right? When you show up with empathy, when you offer generosity, it only is like 1 + 1 = 5 or even 10.
Yep. That's just so well said. And in my mindful democracy book, I say, I try to remember the line exactly. I was happy with it. I said, happiness is not like an apple pie with a limited number of slices. I get one and you don't. I mean, it's not like that at all, actually. It's additive, it's exponential.
That's really funny.
Yeah, I was
And
thinking,
well, there's a story. I don't know if you ever read this, the warm fuzzy story.
no, I don't know that.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
tell me
oh
about it.
I'm gonna tell you about it, and I'll send it to you afterwards. I grew up with this, it was like in the glorious Steinem, my Bay Area hippie mama days, where she like brought all these resources into us, and it was in one of the books we had as kids, and it was everyone shared these warm fuzzies all the time, and then one day this person came to town and said, if you share all your warm fuzzies, you'll run out. You really need to save those for only the most important people in your life. But here's a bag of cold pricklies. So if you don't want to give out a warm fuzzy, you just give out a cold prickly and you just save the warm fuzzies for only the most important people in your life. Don't give out too many because you will run out. And then, eventually in the story, they realize that the warm fuzzies can never run out.
Yeah.
Is this invitation for us to recognize that we can choose to offer love to everyone, but it is a choice.
Yeah, it is. It's a choice and it's a practice, right? It's building that capacity to be able to, I don't know, to make love your reaction to things, right? As
Mhm.
opposed to something else. And I think that's a lot of our practice actually, is to cultivate these new habits of
Yeah.
love and compassion and warm fuzzies as opposed to cold pricklies. I love that. That's such a beautiful story.
It's
That
so,
sounds like a Shel
yeah.
Silverstein story, actually. Uh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
it does. Yeah. So I'm so impressed that you found your way to meditation as a teen boy. What, for someone who wants to get started but doesn't know where to begin, what's the entry point? How do they show up for this deep, reflective work to connect to the divine within?
Yeah. The entry point is wherever you are right now. And that is the beautiful thing about meditation, is that, when I first started practicing meditation, I was under the wrong assumption that, meditation means sitting in perfect stillness, not moving a muscle, not thinking any thoughts. And if I had a thought, it meant I was a bad meditator. Or if I moved, it meant I was a bad meditator. But I think we have to set aside that judgment. Our bodies are always moving because we're always breathing and our hearts are always beating. And so we're moving, and our minds are made to think. And that's great. We need more thinking in this world. But I think that anyone at any point can begin to become more sensitive to their breath and just begin to start to notice the rise and fall of the inhale and the exhale. And if you're mindful of your inhale and then you watch your mind wander off, you're practicing mindfulness because you're attending to what's actually happening in the present moment. So when I start to work with people who haven't meditated before, I say, we're just going to take 3 breaths together. That's it. That's all we need. And sometimes that really is literally all you
All
need.
you
Like,
need, yeah.
I start all of my meetings on campus with everyone in the meeting. I invite them to take 3 deep breaths together. And it's amazing how it helps people to fully arrive in the space. I've never heard anyone say, oh, I didn't need that. All I ever hear is, oh, I really needed that. And so, if
It's
watching
really
the breath,
magical, right? Because I
oh,
mean, we breathe autonomically. It happens no matter
yep,
what because we're alive. So we're breathing. And when we bring our intention to it and our awareness to it, it changes everything, the way we
yep,
experience it.
yeah. And if mindful breathing is not your bag, it might become your bag at some point. That's okay. I invite people to put their feet on the ground and just to notice the connection between their feet and the earth, and to do the same thing, to kind of watch that for just a few seconds. And if your mind wanders off, bring it back. Those simple practices are the foundation. You don't have to spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 hours. Sometimes it's beautiful to do that if you have the time. Most of us don't. But just starting with those little simple practices and noticing what happens and remembering to continue to practice. Um, and then coming back to that sense of stillness in moments when you need it, because we all need it, I think is a really nice, simple way of getting into the practice.
I love that invitation. It's so accessible. It reminds me of the quote, where your attention goes, your energy flows, whether it's
Nice. Yeah.
breath or noticing your feet. I'm at a standing desk right now, so I can feel my feet
Sure.
side to side. And it's a practice of embodiment so that we can all start to connect more to the divine, as you've shared so eloquently throughout this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad to know you. So, Professor Jeremy David Engels, he's liberal arts endowed professor at Penn State University. His website is super simple, jeremydavidengels.com. And I can't wait to read on mindful democracy, a declaration of interdependence to mend a fractured world. It's exactly what we need right now. And it just sounds like an incredible story that you've weaved together through that book. And then Living Namaste is, I think it's available on Amazon right now, maybe everywhere where you can find books. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
It's a pre-order and it'll be out, I think, June 16th.
Nice.
So
And so it's a practical guide to mindfulness, yoga, and building community. And if anything in this episode stood out for you, check out his books, order them online. And so looking forward to seeing you in person. Thanks again. I can't wait to meet up and keep in touch.
Cheers. Thank you.
Subscribe, like, and share this podcast with a friend. And please send me your feedback. I would love to hear from you. You can learn more at sparkpluglabs.co.